Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Triple Threat Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, July 9th. Welcome back, everybody. We have a lot to get into today. As a title states, we're going to get into our top 10 running backs of the NFL, a couple of honorable mentions here. Later on in the show, some basketball talk. We'll go over LeBron James to the Knicks, potentially. Some max contract extensions were signed for some rookies earlier this week. We'll talk about them and whether or not it's a good idea for those teams to make those decisions. All of that and more. But we're going to start off in the NFL here today. We're going to start off with what's going on with the running backs. Of course, we did our quarterback list on Monday, and you can go and check that out. We're going to start off, as we always do, with our honorable mentions. There are a couple of guys that I wrote down that I think could potentially be top 10 backs in some people's eyes, but I'm not quite ready to put them up there. Three guys that have a chance: Kyren Williams, James Conner, and James Cook. Kyren Williams has a nose for the end zone like nobody else. He seemed to have found the end zone just about every single week with the Rams, but he's not a guy that I look at as a consistently great runner behind a good Rams offensive line. He was a lot better last season. James Conner is a sneaky pick for a top 10 back. He's not quite there, but if somebody put him in that 10 spot, I would not be mad. What he did with Arizona, with his running style, his ability to run through contact, stay up, was incredibly impressive, and he is the guy that they ran the offense through last year. He's arguably a top 10 back over there. And James Cook. James Cook, I could see why people want to put him up there, but he hasn't really quite put together a full season. He's kind of been limited down the stretch in some seasons, started off slow in others. He's going to get a big payday, and he deserves a big payday, but James Cook, in my mind, not quite a top 10 back. And the last one that I think is really interesting in my honorable mentions list here, we have Ashton Jeanty. And Ashton Jeanty is going to be a great running back. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I understand if some people are ready to put Ashton Jeanty into their top 10. He is the kind of runner that we have not seen come into the NFL probably since Saquon Barkley. We haven't seen this guy, this kind of running back, come into the NFL since Saquon, since Christian McCaffrey, when they went in those couple of pretty much back-to-back in 20 in the late 20 teens, right? These are guys that were universally known as great prospects for running backs, and Ashton Jeanty is going to be up there. I'm just not ready to put him as a top 10 back yet because he has not played a snap, and I want to see him do it at the NFL level, but he is someone that I think probably cracks into that top 10 list right away once he gets his toes wet in the NFL. But getting on to the list here, my number 10 running back, it is Kenneth Walker. And this one might step out to some people as a little bit weird. Kenneth Walker only had 500 plus yards last year, but he is a guy that, if he is healthy, is incredible. You do everything he does behind the awful, atrocious, disgusting, awful Seattle offensive line. Every single year of his career, he has 7 or more touchdowns, 9, 8, and 7 touchdowns through his first 3 seasons. If he can stay healthy, his career average is 1,000-yard rusher every single year, again, behind a really bad Seattle offensive line. If you go back and you watch what Kenneth Walker had to deal with when he was getting touched before he even had the ball in his hands, when he was making guys miss behind the line of scrimmage, he just needs to stay healthy. Kenneth Walker is an elite back in the NFL. He's my 10th best rusher right now. And that might be a little bit of a hot take, but I will stand on that until I die. My number 9 running back in the NFL here is Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And some people I've seen have Bucky Irving in their top 5. I think that's a little bit crazy. I think we need to hold off a little bit on what Bucky Irving can do. He burst onto the scene as a rookie. What really sticks out with him is his contact balance and his production in both the run game and the pass game. He's one of those dual threat running backs. His yards per carry, he was incredibly efficient last season, 5.4 yards per carry. That's good for fourth best among running backs and sixth best overall, only behind two quarterbacks who had that 1 and 2 spot. Lamar Jackson with nearly 8 yards per carry. It's a little bit different when it comes to when it comes to quarterbacks, but still fourth best amongst all running backs. He didn't jump onto the scene until late in the season. He was an 1,000-yard rusher, and I can't wait to see what he does with a full season. That's a good Tampa Bay offensive line. I like Bucky Irving a lot. He's going to have a lot more years like that one, like last year, as long as he can stay on the field. My number 8 running back here, it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. You want to talk about one of those guys that kind of flies under the radar. How about Jonathan Taylor? Last year, when you think of what Jonathan Taylor did, I was thinking he was sitting probably 900 to 1,100 yards. No, 1,431. 1,431 yards and 11 touchdowns on a Colts team that was atrocious, especially with its quarterback situation. Anthony Richardson has not been the answer for this Colts team, and yet Jonathan Taylor continued to do Jonathan Taylor things. When you look over at his career, he has had a couple of injured seasons, but whenever he starts 13 games or more, if you get a year where Jonathan Taylor gets in the game 13 or more times, he has never had less than 1,100 yards. Not 1,000, 1,100 and 10 touchdowns. He's had at least 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns in every single season of his career when he starts 13 games or more. He's an incredible back over there in Indianapolis. There's a reason he got paid when he did. Jonathan Taylor, the 8th best back in the NFL. At number 7 here for you, I've got Christian McCaffrey. Now, this one was a tough one to rank because if we went off of what he did before he got hurt, he was the offensive player of the year. He would be number 1. He would be the best running back in the NFL. But he's coming off of an injured season where he barely got on the field at all, so you have to take that into consideration. 7 might feel low, it might feel high. I don't really know where to put C-Mac, but I know he had to be in the top 10. You have to think back. He won the Offensive Player of the Year just 2 seasons ago. That is not the kind of production that you're just going to overlook. That is the kind of thing that you look at and you say, that's the guy that we want in our backfield. Christian McCaffrey is one of the highest paid backs in the league for a reason, and if he's healthy, he's going to show you why that is. At number 6, halfway through our top 10, it's Josh Jacobs. He, of course, led the NFL in rushing yards when he was the Raiders a couple years back. He did not have a great offensive line back then. His first time being behind a great offensive line in Green Bay, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, tied for the most in the NFL. Josh Jacobs was. He was a beast. He is a guy that just bowls over people. It is one of the things that is very impressive about him. Again, that contact balance that we talk about a lot. Josh Jacobs on the field for every single play. He's one of the last true bell cow backs that we have, and he does it all. Josh Jacobs, the 6th best running back in the NFL. Breaking down our first half of the top 10, we've got Kenny Walker at 10, Bucky Irving at 9, Jonathan Taylor at 8, CMC at 7, and Josh Jacobs at 6. Getting into the top 5, though, we're going to start off with the big one. Derrick Henry, the king. King Henry is the 5th best running back in the NFL, and maybe he could be a little bit higher. The one thing that gives me pause about Derrick Henry is, of course, his age. He's on the wrong side of 30, but he shows no sign of slowing down. His first season with Lamar Jackson's of the Ravens was incredible. Nearly outpaced Saquon Barkley, had tied for the most touchdowns in the NFL with Josh Jacobs, who was one spot behind him. He's a guy that I'm not going to start doubting until he gives me a reason to doubt him. And with the load kind of taken off of him a little bit in Baltimore with the legs of Lamar Jackson, he doesn't have to be the entire offense all by himself. He's only going to get better. I think Derrick Henry is the 5th best back in the NFL. At number 4, this might be a bit of a hot take, but I've got Devon Achane. When there's one word to describe this man, and that is speed. Speed, 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 speed. You talk about a guy that can just get on you in a hurry, a career 5.6 yards per carry, 4.7 yards per carry in 2024 behind an injured offensive line. He had 1,500 scrimmage yards, or 1,499 scrimmage yards last year in 2024. He's going to be on a better offensive system this year when it comes to his competition, first of all, and also just the talent around him. If they can stay healthy, it's going to be harder to get him. I think Devon Achane is a very special player, the fourth best back in the league. Getting into the top three, though, I think there's pretty clearly three backs that are above the rest of them. My third best back, Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, for my money, has the best explosion in the league. What do I mean by explosion? When your running back hits the hole, what is that next? What is it? How long does it take to get to that next level? Well, how long does it take for them to just get across the field, right? And for my money, Jahmyr Gibbs picks up the pace, accelerates, and just takes off like a rocket, explodes out of his gaps faster than anybody in the league. He's got the best burst in the league. It is insane to watch him in the open field. He is incredibly athletic, has a lot of agility in there. Jahmyr Gibbs, the third best running back. Really, it's a 2A, 2B situation with Bijan Robinson, who is my number two back right here. Bijan is, for my money again, the best dual threat back in the league. You talk about a guy that can rush for 1,000 and have 1,000 through the air. That's Bijan Robinson. His reception skills are incredible. He's one of those guys that you just get the ball to him and he makes something happen. His ability to get past that line of scrimmage is incredible. I'd like to see the Falcons use him a little bit better than they have. It was a lot better last season than in the past, but still, Bijan Robinson, the second best back in football. But of course, at number one, it never really was a discussion. It's Saquon Barkley. He just is coming off of the best running back season in NFL history, where if you include the playoffs, he broke the single-season rushing record. He broke the single-season touchdown record. He was just 100 yards away from the regular season rushing record, and he sat in the final game of the regular season against a not-that-great Giants defense. He would have broken that record if he had played. Saquon Barkley, the best running back in the league, behind the best offensive line in the league, on the best roster in the league. A lot of pieces lined up, but Saquon is a very special talent, and he deserves to be up here at number one. We'll run through the whole list real quick, though. Honorable mentions to Kyren Williams, James Conner, James Cook, and to Ashton Genty, but our top 10 running backs, in case you missed it: Kenny Walker at 10, Bucky Irving at 9, JT, Jonathan Taylor at 8, CMC at 7, Josh Jacobs at 6, Derrick Henry at 5, Devon Achane at 4, Jahmyr Gibbs at 3. Number 2 is Bijan Robinson, and the king of the running backs, number 1 in 2024-25, it's Saquon Barkley. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you guys think were your top 10 running backs? Anybody I missed? What's your biggest problem with this list? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, basketball discussions here for you. We have lots of talk about some max contract extensions and if they're even worth it in the first place. We'll be right back here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We are live on YouTube and on Twitch at 3 Threat Show, at YouTube at Triple Threat Show. You can find us on all other platforms at either 3 Threat Show, at Triple Threat Show, or at Triple Threat _show, all over the place. We also have that Beacons link in our bio to find more long-form, short-form content available in all of our podcasts as well. But right now, if you're just tuning in, we just finished going over the top 10 running backs in the NFL. In this segment, we're going to turn our attention over to the world of basketball. Basketball has a little bit and a lot going on, but also nothing at the same time. But right now, we're going to focus a little bit on the contract extensions that are taking place. Right now, there were a couple of max rookie contract extensions that took place. Paolo Banchero of the Orlando Magic got his contract extension, 5-year, $287 million. And Chet Holmgren of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the champion himself, signed his rookie max extension, 5 years, $250 million. Now, these contracts in and of themselves, at least in my mind, are not bad deals. These are both players that you had to re-sign, and based on their status in the league, based on how they are when it comes to star power, when it comes to the importance of the team, their role, they demanded max contracts, especially Paolo. Now, Chet, I have a little more holdback on it, I should say, than Paolo does, because Paolo is that number one option, while Chet, in my mind, is the third offensive option for the Thunder. But what he provides on the defensive end is invaluable as a rim protector and just a deterrent from guys going inside. We saw it especially in Game 7 with TJ McConnell and all those guys getting swatted all over the place by Chet Holmgren. But I think the bigger question right now, and the bigger question in general when it comes to these max contracts, is just very simply, is it worth it, right? The current CBA has a lot of limitations when it comes to paying players. We have most recently seen the Celtics, who signed 2 max players, Tatum and Brown, the summer after winning their NBA championship, and now they've blown it up. Now, it hurts them that Tatum went down with injury, but that was so much money for them. Paying both of those guys max contracts, that hurts so badly. So let's take a look at all the guys that currently are on rookie max contracts or max contracts in general, and let's just think about whether or not this is worth it, right? We already talked about Paolo. I understand paying him, but the downside of it is you've already paid Franz Wagner, your second option, and now a second player on the max deal. You also bring in Desmond Bane, and this is a Magic team that if they don't go far this year, and there is a real chance they won't, that is going to get more and more expensive, and a team that, if there is a dominant force in the East, just does not scream to me as a team that's going to be that dominant force. They're good, don't get me wrong. I love this Magic team, and I love the team that they built with all those defenders. They just need more shooters, more guys that can create. Franz and Paolo aren't necessarily the guys that are going to do that. They're a good part of a team, but I don't know if they're championship level guys, especially number ones. And that's what you're kind of looking for when you're giving max contracts to. Cade Cunningham has a max contract. I have no qualms with him getting a max contract. He deserves to get a max contract. That is just set in stone there. Evan Mobley is an interesting one because he just won Defensive Player of the Year, and he has his assets. He is one of the more intriguing players in all of basketball with what his skill set is as far as stretching the floor and playing defense. But he's also a guy that isn't going to be your big option. You have Donovan Mitchell over there. You have Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley kind of plays second or third fiddle to those guys. Again, he adds himself as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but at the same time, is he really worth that max contract? I'm not going to get into it. But let's look at overall. These are the guys that have their max contracts. Scotty Barnes as well, and I don't necessarily think that's the greatest one, but this is the going rate of these players nowadays. Your star players, you need to pay them this money. That's just how much it costs. That's the price of business in the NBA right now. So I'm not going to go too hard on these front offices. I'm not going to go too hard on these players. But you have to think about, with this CBA especially, is it worth it? The max contract gives up to 30% of of your whole salary cap to one player. Now, if we're going to look at recent memory, when was the last time any team was successful with two players on max contracts? And there is only one example in recent history where a team has been successful with two players on max contracts. That is the Lakers in the bubble with LeBron and Anthony Davis. Now, that comes with its own set of unique circumstances. And I'm not saying that the bubble championship was fake, but it is a different set of circumstances than others. Now, that Lakers team was great, no doubt about it, and they probably would have won the chip even if they were not in the bubble. But that comes with a little bit of a grain of salt, a little bit of an asterisk on it. And that's the only time when you have two players that have made max, that are making currently max money, that have won a championship. That was also right before this new CBA, right? You may point to the Celtics, the Boston Celtics of late, but we just talked about it. Tatum and Brown on max contracts, they were not on max contracts when they won the NBA title. They paid for one season of max contract, Tatum and Brown. They didn't make it past the Knicks in the second round, and now they're blowing it up. They've moved off of Kristaps Porzingis. They've moved off of Drew Holiday. That team was way too expensive. It's hard to sustain this. Two max contracts are unsustainable, right? So now when we look at a team like the Magic, a team that is going all in this season to try and compete for a title. When we look at the Thunder that just won a title, but have now given out not one but two max contracts. They had to give one out to SGA, right? They had to give one out to SGA, who's coming off of it's probably a top 10 season in NBA history, maybe even top 5 individual seasons, winning an MVP, winning finals MVP, conference finals MVP, winning just a title in general. Being the points leader, the scoring leader in the NBA. You can go on and on and on, all NBA player, yada, 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 right? SGA deserved to get that max contract. That's not something that is awful, but you have to think about Chet, because that's where this whole thing started rolling in my brain. Chet Holmgren is a great player. Again, that defense was a massive part of what made that Thunder team so dominant. His rim protection was a massive part of what made that team champions. But he is a third option. He is the third option on that basketball team. And now that team has gone from young and unpaid to young and very, very paid. We knew this was coming, right? Especially with this apron, and we talked about it. It is hard to build a dynasty in this current climate in the NBA with the new CBA, the first, the second apron, and the luxury tax. It is nearly impossible to build a dynasty. But I thought they would last another year or two before having to pay everybody. They've paid SGA now. They've paid Chet. Jalen Williams is next. He needs a max contract. You can't be giving 90% of your cap space out to 3 guys. What has made this Thunder team so special is the fact that they have so much depth, so much quality depth, and a lot of that is great drafting and great trades. But the piper has to get paid. You have to pay the piper at some point, and it's coming right away. Paying Chet before paying J-Dub, I don't know what that means for their future. I don't know, and I assume they're not going to let J-Dub go, but you have to think ownership there is not going to be able to shell out the cash, the luxury tax. The Celtics shed $250 million in tax salary by getting rid of their guys this offseason. It's going to be a very similar deal when we're talking about the Thunder and what they have to do to avoid paying way too much. And they're a team that has so much money, so much ability to move off and move around assets that maybe they feel comfortable moving off of their depth, saying, oh, we'll hit again. But that's not easy to do. You can try and play that rookie roulette as much as you want, but it's not going to hit on red every single time, right? Eventually, it's going to land on the side you don't bet on, and it's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt you bad. I'm not here to say that rookie contract extensions are not worth it. I'm not here to say no one in the NBA deserves a max contract, but I think when you're a team like the Thunder, when you're a team like the Magic that is young, you're hungry, and you're trying to build into something special, you can add the Rockets into this discussion because they're going to be here soon. You have to be very, very careful with who you give the max contracts to. A team that I'll point to that I think did it not a great way, it's the Washington Wizards. And I know that Washington Wizards team with John Wall and Bradley Beal and that whole era was never really title contenders. But this was a team that was great. They were a team that was one game away, one Kelly Olynyk away from making the Eastern Conference Finals, taking out a Celtics team and challenging LeBron and the Lakers during the Lakers and Warriors runs over there, right? This was a team that was definitely a contender in the East. Injuries hurt them a lot, but it's also a bad contract given out to Beal. You see how it's affecting the Suns now. A bad contract given out to Wall. They had to buy him out. It did not work out. He's now out of the league. You have to be careful because it can destroy your team, not just for its current era, but for a long time. Now, do I think that the Thunder are going to be able to figure it out? Most likely. But you have to be so careful when you're giving out max contracts like this, because it, like I said, can tank not just this core, but the future core forever. It is hard to build in the NBA. There's only so many players and there's so much talent out there. It's hard to build a good team. I don't necessarily think that it's going to kill their dynasty, but it's going to make it a whole heck of a lot shorter, giving out max contracts to guys like Chet Holmgren and eventually J-Dub when that time does come. They've still got time, and I don't think they're going to be a dynasty. I don't think 2 years is enough to be a dynasty, really is what I'm saying. I think max contracts are going to happen. That's just how it is with the way that the NBA is set up, but they need to be more careful, and you need to think about team building a little bit more, especially when you're a team like the Rockets that's coming up for them, like the Thunder that just immediately got way too expensive, and like the Magic that are way too expensive and are not quite on the same tier as either of those two teams. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about rookie extensions? What do you think about just max extensions in general? I know it's a part of the game, but would you give it out to all these guys? What is your kind of idea of how you would give out these max extensions, and how would you build a team? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about LeBron James. LeBron James has kind of been in and out of the media cycle right now, but he, of course, asked for a trade. We covered this last Wednesday when we talked about some places he could go. But the more I think about it, the more I think there's one spot that I think would just be perfect for him, the New York Knicks. We'll talk about that and much more coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over a question of whether or not max contracts are worth it and how, if at all, you should give them out. If you're just tuning in, like I said, lots to get into. We're going to talk about LeBron James. We are live right now on YouTube at the Triple Threat Show and on Twitch at 3 Threat Show, as we are every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here with me. You can also find our short form content all over the internet. Check out our link tree in the description there. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, all of those good places. Make sure you go give us a follow over there. But we're going to take our attention over to LeBron James. Some basketball talk on a beautiful Wednesday, July 9th, leads us over to what is an interesting topic. One that we covered, of course, last week. We talked a little bit about some destinations for a guy like LeBron James if he was going to be traded, but there are some places that I think specifically make a lot of sense. Now, we're going to do this from a team perspective and a LeBron perspective. From a team perspective, if you're the Lakers, you're not trading LeBron to anybody in the West. That is insane. No one in the West is taking LeBron. Now, there's two options over in the East that make any sort of sense at all. That is the Bucks, because they have that ability to trade Giannis to them. But I don't think the Bucks are really going to do a one-for-one style kind of trade, Giannis for LeBron. I just don't really see that, and I don't think LeBron wants to go to Milwaukee to finish out his career. The other one that I think makes the most amount of sense, it's one, New York. And let me tell you why the Knicks should go all in for LeBron James. The Knicks need to make a big move. Their drastic move seems to be firing Tibbs. Now, that is not going to be enough in the East. Tibbs was a good coach. Tibbs was a very good coach. Mike Brown, they bring in as a replacement, and he is a good coach. He is also a very good coach. But it's not that tier of coach is going to spring you up to that NBA Finals. It is a weak East. Everyone in the East knows it. The Magic smell blood. The Hawks smell blood. The Cavs smell blood. These are teams that are making big-time moves to be contenders in the East this year, while the Knicks have just kind of sat on their hands and done nothing. Mike Brown has coached just about every single major superstar in this league. He has coached Curry. He has coached Durant. He has coached Duncan. He has coached LeBron. Crucially, he has coached LeBron too in NBA Finals. Now, this is a Knicks team that has its fair share of strengths and its fair share of weaknesses. One of those big weaknesses is defense, and specifically the defense of Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns, who many might say second best center in the league. The Lakers could use the second best center in the league. I know they just went out and they got DeAndre Ayton, but getting a guy like Cat down there would A, fit the timeline of Luka a little bit better than LeBron did, and it would also give them that kind of one-for-one money split that works. If you just do one-for-one, it works. Now, LeBron James has said that he wants to go play for New York in the past. It's not something recently, and if I'm being completely honest, I don't think LeBron gets traded at all, but I think the Knicks should be going full all in this season for LeBron James. If you only have 1 year like it is right now to go all in with the Celtics injured, with the Pacers injured, with the Cavs a little bit injured, you need to do it. You need to do it if you're an NBA team like the Knicks that is so close to contending, so close to making themselves out of the East. They need to go and they need to get LeBron James. I don't care. It's not going to take too much to go out and get him. You have a coach that's familiar with him. You have a guy in LeBron James that has in the past shown a liking towards playing in the Garden and in New York. Cat is probably the biggest liability. We saw it in the playoffs against the Pacers, where when he was out on the court, that was their worst lineup because they would get him on the pick and roll and he would drop, leave a shooter wide open, or he would step up and they would blow right by him. They have great wing defenders. They have great shooters on the outside, and that is a combination that works for LeBron. And I know you're not necessarily going to want to play LeBron at center, but he's a guy that would add better defense at center, and he can play a small ball center for you. You have Mitchell Robinson that can slide in and play that position. You play LeBron James at the 4. That's a really good duo in the front court. He's a guy that, paired with Jalen Brunson, doesn't have to be the lead guy on offense like we saw with Luka, making him a much better defender. Now, he can still take the lead. That's not an issue. And Jalen Brunson has the ability to pass it off to him. You got OG Anunoby over there, Mikal Bridges over there that can play elite defense and have really good shooters in the corner. That is a really good starting lineup right there with LeBron James. I understand you don't want to move off of Cat after making a big trade for him last season, and he helped you get around further. But if I'm going 1-for-1 Cat for Braun, you have to think this helps the Knicks in the short term, helps the Lakers in the short term, and in the long term a little bit. And I think the Knicks need to go all in. Because, look, it's not just the Knicks that need to go all in. It's Mike Brown that needs to go all in. If we're being completely honest, do we think that Mike Brown survives past this season if he doesn't make it at least to the Eastern Conference Finals? Do we think Mike Brown survives past this season if he doesn't make it to the NBA Finals? I don't. I don't think he makes it past this season if he doesn't at least make it as far as they did last year. And I don't think this is a team that has done enough to guarantee themselves as a top 2 team in the East. I really don't. They've shored up the bench. They have, but they need to figure out rotations. They need to figure out how to work with each other. I just think this is the time for the Knicks to put all their chips in the center of the table and say, screw the future. It wouldn't even screw the future that much. You're still going to have your guys. You're still going to have OG Anunoby. You're still going to have Mikal Bridges. You're still going to have Josh Hart. You're still going to have Jalen Brunson. These are all guys that you're still going to have. That is your core. You're telling me you wouldn't move Cat for 1 year of LeBron and one chance at glory and a title? I would in a heartbeat. Now, the tougher question comes with the Lakers because they need a center, but they don't just need a center. They need a lot of things. Maybe the Knicks have to throw in some other salary-making moves. Maybe the Knicks need to throw in a couple of other pieces there to make this move happen. But it's just 1 year of LeBron. And I know the Lakers, as LeBron James and his agent have said, are looking towards the future. And looking towards the future is not a bad thing in any way. I want to make that clear. Looking towards the future, not a bad thing. But you do need to be very, very careful with what future you look towards. That defense is going to be atrocious with Luka and with Cat on the floor at all times. That's going to be an easy attack, and it's going to be much like the Knicks in the playoffs, where they have the offense to keep up with you, but the defense is going to be tough. Teams are going to be able to attack that. It's going to be fine, I think. But I don't think Cat and Luka necessarily mesh together right away. So I think the Lakers are probably the team that say no, but the Knicks need to pursue this with everything they have. And I have not heard that much about potential teams looking at trading for LeBron. LeBron James should have a massive market. He should. He should have a market for a bunch of teams in the East. He should. He really, really should. But there are just not too many guys interested in trading for a 40-year-old LeBron who has just 1, maybe 2 more seasons remaining. And I understand that. But if you can win a championship right now, you make that move. And I think the Knicks plus LeBron James are a championship-level team and probably would be the best team in the East next season. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think LeBron James should go to the New York Knicks? Do you think the Knicks should go all in on LeBron James, who is the best team in the East if the Knicks get LeBron James? Who says no in this trade as well? I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of those questions and more. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Triple Threat Show. I appreciate all of your support. Again, you can check us out all over the internet. We are live on YouTube and Twitch. Twitch at 3 Threat Show, YouTube at Triple Threat Show. You can find us on TikTok at Triple Threat Show. You can find us on Instagram at Triple Threat Show, and you can find us on Twitter at 3 Threat Show. All over the place. Check us out. Give us a follow. We will be back I will be back on Friday. My co-host, Mehrab, will be live tomorrow going over all the biggest stories in sports. Me and Mehrab will be live on Friday afternoon. Can't wait to be back with you then. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy it. Stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.